The opinions expressed in this show are solely those of the participants and do not reflect opinion or policy of BNS Media. BNS Media does not endorse or represent any product featured nor discussed in this program. Welcome to AutoTalk Live. My name is Sham Kanji, I'm your host. With me is Baraza JM, a well-known automotive expert in Kenya who also writes for Nation DN2, also writes for AutoBazaar, and he is now a resident expert on AutoTalk. Welcome, it is our pleasure.
Thank you, Sham.
So, Baraza, we are this is our second webcast. Our first webcast was a trial run. Being our second webcast, we wanted to break down for our viewers, for our listeners out there, that the AutoTalk is really a segmented talk show, as well as questions and answers, help, technical aspects, reviews, and interviews as well regarding automotive trends and anything that's going on with automotive in Kenya, and more recently, I guess, the new laws that have come out, which we will discuss a little later. I'd like to start off with a few questions that our viewers, our visitors on our website have posted on the site, which you've obviously reviewed, and we have some of these that we'd like to start off with. We'd like to start off with, let's break down the show. We have segmented questions and answers, and then we will break for not break, but we will have a segment where people can call in, users can call in, viewers can call in, ask questions through either SMS, there's a mobile number right on your screen there. They can email live@autotalk.co.ke. They can also visit the Facebook page at autotalk.co.ke/Facebook or FB, and they can also tweet at AutoTalk Live. So we'll get started with the first question. One of our viewers asked, what is the difference between a turbocharger and a supercharged engine? So if you don't mind, if you could answer that question, please.
Okay, the syntax aside, yes, because a turbocharger is a device and a supercharged engine is an engine, but anyway, the language aside, both devices are what we call forced induction devices. They're basically air pumps into the engine.
I see.
From the basic principle of operation of an engine, the engine takes in air at atmospheric pressure or slightly less than atmospheric pressure. Then that is compressed, fuel is delivered, and that fuel is ignited and the whole mix burns up.
So, pardon me, so what you're saying is a conventional engine just takes regular air pressure from the environment.
Yes, it does.
And a supercharged is taking compressed air.
Yes.
I see, okay.
Actually, both supercharged and turbocharged engines take in compressed air. Now, the difference in the name comes from the difference in the power source of the air pump, because both of them are air pumps, post-induction devices. With the turbocharger, actually, it's supposed to be called a turbo supercharger. That is the actual name.
I see.
But
that's a long name.
Yeah, that's a long name. So we just say turbocharger or simply turbo. I have a turbo in my car.
Yeah, we like to shorten things.
Yeah. So now the turbo's basis of operation is, it is driven by exhaust gases. The stream of exhaust gases, it's a stream of air. It's like someone is blowing through the mouth like this. Now that blowing turns around a fan.
I see.
That fan in turn is connected to another fan, which is now on the intake side of the engine. So now when the fan on the exhaust side is being rotated, it's also rotating the fan on the intake side.
They balance each other out.
The intake fan is driven by the exhaust fan.
Okay.
The effect is that
it's pulling in.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, the effect is that while the exhaust fan is being driven by exiting exhaust gases, the intake fan is sort of sucking air. So yeah, it's sort of sucking air into the engine. So in essence, it compresses that air. What happens is that you have a much greater mass of air going into the engine. And remember basic chemistry, a greater mass means a greater number of moles.
Yes.
Now, combustion in the engine is a chemical reaction. So if you increase the number of moles of one reactant,
you have a more dynamic.
Yeah, it actually follows that to keep your reaction constant, you have to increase the number of moles of the other reactant.
I see.
Which in our case is fuel. So most turbocharged cars actually are a little bit thirsty because more fuel is delivered into the engine to keep up with the increased volume of the increased mass of air.
I see.
So now with a greater number of reactants, again, what is the outcome of the reaction? This is an exothermic reaction. You have a bigger energy transfer.
So you will have a larger amount of force in that same space.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what gives that a quick boost that supercharged or turbocharged engines
Yes, exactly.
offer. I see, okay. Well, we'll move on to the next question.
Just a
Sorry, okay, we'll go
just
back.
a moment, yeah.
Okay.
That was now for the turbochargers.
Yes.
The difference between a turbocharger and a supercharger is that the supercharger is driven by the engine. It's not powered by the exhaust gases. There's actually a belt, sort of like the alternator or the power steering pump or the fan. There's a belt coming from the crankshaft that drives the supercharger.
The supercharger.
Yeah.
But the turbocharger is driven by a turbine.
The turbine, which is powered by the exhaust gases.
By the exhaust gases. So that's the difference. One's got a mechanical drive to it, and the other one has a pressure-driven drive to it.
Yes, exactly.
I see. Okay, those are largely the significant differences between the two. Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next question.
Okay.
So another visitor on our site asked, which is the best family vehicle in the Kenyan market at the present time? And it's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of families around.
Yeah.
And often enough, cars are sometimes through budget restrictive, so you find with the new laws that we have, everyone has to have a safety belt.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on that?
The best family car. Okay, number one, it depends on your needs and your uses. But from what I've observed, the Toyota Wish is very, very popular among users. I can't say I don't know why. I know why, because it has 7 seats. But
that's it. Okay, 7 seats.
But how many families have 5 children plus daddy and mommy to make 7? Not so many. And the problem of having 7 seats in a car of that size, because it's more or less the same size as a Corolla Fielder.
Yes.
The problem of having 7 seats in a car of that size is that you now have much less boot space. It's the Christmas season right now. Let's say you're driving out of Nairobi up country with your family.
Yes.
You need to carry stuff for whoever you find down that way. If you have 7 seats in your car, you can't carry much. And maybe you're a family of what, 5 or 4. You don't have much. So there's that. You can have the other car that I mentioned, the Corolla Fielder, though that is more of a delivery vehicle than a family car. For large families or for what I like to call wafting, driving around enjoying yourselves, you could opt for a van.
A minivan.
Yeah, a minivan. No, the two commonest minivans, incidentally, again, are Toyotas. We tend to buy a lot of Toyotas in Kenya for some reason.
But they generally are the most popular vehicles in the world, it seems.
Yeah, it seems. So out of the two Toyotas, there's the Noah, and then there's the Alphard. The Noah is more common because it's cheaper, but the ground clearance is not so good, and I've heard a few people complaining about the diesel engine in the Noah. The Alphard, on the other hand, it's a little bit expensive, but it's more powerful and it has better equipment, and it's a lot more comfortable.
It's a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
For long journeys.
Especially for long journeys.
And having more power would be ideal for, let's say, traveling long distances.
Yeah, for extended highway use.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think there are many family men out there who would want to be seen in a minivan.
Outside Kenya, yes, but within Kenya, surprisingly,
yes,
there's a very odd trend. People tend to love vans, including men.
Is it because it serves dual functionality? They can ferry their families around as well as use it for work?
Yeah, I'd say the dual functionality, yes. But also, it's also a size thing.
The larger the vehicle.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, you can afford a van much easier than you can afford, let's say, a Prado or a huge Land Cruiser.
And yet you have the same space.
Yeah. You have
and
the
perhaps
same space
more.
And the same size of car. You still dominate other people on the road.
On the road. Intimidation is a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope that answers your question for you, viewer. Moving on to the next question. What's your opinion on hybrid vehicles in the Kenyan, and are there any in the Kenyan market today?
Yeah, there are hybrid vehicles. Particularly the most popular one in the world, which is also the commonest in Kenya. By commonest, I don't mean that it's very common. It's just that it's the only hybrid that has come in so far, and that is the Toyota Prius. The hybrid power unit that it has an engine, a 1.5 liter engine, that works as an engine normally does in a car. It powers the wheels. Over and above that, there's also a battery pack. Now, when driving, depending on conditions and the demands on the engine, You could be driving, if the engine is developing, let's say 70 horsepower.
Yes.
And to keep your car moving, you need only 30. The other 40 horsepower will be used to charge the battery.
I see.
Yeah. If you need a bit more power, let's say you press the accelerator a bit more, now all the engine power will be used to drive the car.
Yes.
If you need a bit more power over and above that, now the battery will also contribute.
It'll contribute as well. So there's an electric motor as well as a petrol-driven motor.
Yeah, as well as a petrol-driven motor.
They work together.
Yeah, they work together.
In terms of efficiency?
No, that particular car the efficiency is not the best, sad to say. I think Toyota did it as a PR maneuver.
Yes.
Yeah, they had to show the world how green they are and all that. Because in terms of efficiency, there are so many cars that are a lot more efficient than that, including diesel-powered cars. The smaller German cars like the Volkswagen Polo, Audi A3, A2, A1, BMW 1 Series, they're actually a lot more efficient than the Toyota Prius.
And the diesel engines that I know we're detracting from the original question, but diesel engines are being compared to hybrids for efficiency and for economy. Today's diesel engines, of course, have changed. They're low sulfur, high output engines, so they can fairly well compare to a petrol engine in most cases as well, except for high performance. In Kenya, in terms of hybrids, obviously with a hybrid you have to be able to plug it into an electrical outlet.
Not really. That is for an electric vehicle.
That is a pure electric vehicle. So the hybrid has nothing to do with that. It is purely self-generated.
It's self-charging.
It's self-charging entirely. Okay. What about maintenance costs on a hybrid?
Yeah, no, that is an issue. The battery pack is very, very expensive. And then also, I'm not sure if you have the infrastructure to support repairs and maintenance of the hybrid cars.
That's a good point. One other thing that I'm aware of is that with hybrids, of course, the battery pack is a lead acid batteries, or they have
nowadays they use lithium ion.
Lithium ion. But the expense to produce that and the environmental damage that it causes is under debate. They are wondering if fossil fuel driven vehicles are, if not worse off or better off than building a battery pack for a vehicle. It's still a debate that goes on, I think. Yeah,
actually, Jeremy Clarkson of Top Gear raised a very interesting point on that issue. He said that the kind of processes involved in making the battery pack, just the battery pack alone, of a Toyota Prius, cause more damage to the environment than a Land Rover Discovery will do in its entire operating life.
Wow, that is quite a significant difference. So we have a long way to go still if we're buying a hybrid for the environment.
Yeah, though there are a few developed cars, though they are very, very recent. Cars like the Fisker Kama, sorry. The company is Fisker, the model is Kama. It's a very good hybrid vehicle. It has a diesel electric hybrid engine. Yeah, it's a very good car. Everything is politically correct about it, including the economy figures, and the wood in it has only come from forests that have burnt down. They don't use any animal products, such things. The problem is, for some reason, the car has been catching fire in very large numbers.
Like really catching fire?
Yeah, burning to the ground.
It's not because of the wood they're using from previous forest fires, is it?
I hope not. But the matter is still under investigation. Once some answers are got, we'll get back to.
So, in essence, at this point, in terms of hybrid technology, we haven't come to the point where it has become an environmentally safe vehicle at this point.
No,
one that's sustainable.
No, not yet.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. Hopefully, in the near future, we should see maybe some changes in the hybrid market.
I hope so too.
Another question we have is a very local question. We see this all the time, and of course, with our fuel prices, it's a very important question. Is V-Power. V-Power, you see that in some of the, I think it's Shell petrol stations.
Yeah, it's Shell.
Yeah, Shell, V-Power. What's the difference between V-Power and other types of petrol, and where should V-Power really be used? Is it for every vehicle out there?
Well, yes. The petrol V-Power, what they call the premium unleaded, you can use it in any petrol-powered car. Now the difference between V-Power and other types of fuel is that V-Power, number one, has a higher octane rating. Octane is a fuel additive that reduces its propensity for combustion. The goodness of having a high octane fuel is you can run an engine with a very high compression ratio, which means better performance without running the risk of pre-ignition or engine knock. I'm sure by now, especially given what the weather has been over the past few weeks, a lot of people have experienced engine knocks. Now, using a fuel like V-Power with a high octane rating reduces chances of having an engine knock.
So let me ask you, somebody once told me that V-Power is really designed for high-end vehicles, high-performance engines.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but it can be used in high-performance vehicles.
Okay, so in a high-performance vehicle, you wouldn't want to use any other type of petrol?
No, you wouldn't.
I see, okay. So V-Power can be used for everyone.
Yeah.
It, of course, costs more money. What are any potential downfalls to not using V-Power? Except for knocking?
Okay, other than knocking, V-Power also has detergents and certain additives that revitalize and clean the engine.
I see, so anti-slip compounds.
Yeah, such
things, okay.
So you could run your car's life could run entirely on non-V-Power fuel, but every once in a while you'd be doing overhauls, cleaning, removing the valves and grinding them again and all that. Now V-Power eliminates the need for that kind of intensive labor.
So less carbon buildup in the engine?
Yeah, less carbon buildup, less damage to components, less risk of knocking or pinging. Generally, or when you run on V-Power, the Shell tells us that your car can run longer between repairs and overhauls than when running on normal fuel.
So, in essence, with V-Power, provided you have the budget to that you can afford to buy V-Power, V-Power is a long-term savings.
Yeah,
it is.
So the trick is, what Shell advises is, if you cannot afford to fill your tank with V-Power, mix it up. Maybe run 2 or 3 tankfuls of normal fuel, then once in a while fill it up with V-Power, run on it.
So use it as a cleaner?
Yeah, you can use it as a cleaner.
I see.
If you can afford it, you can run on it.
You can run on it, okay. Yeah. So advisable, definitely. Well, that's a very good answer to that question. We'll move on to the next question now. What is the most efficient car in Kenya, available in Kenya today for office runs?
No, there I'll have to ask you to explain. What do you mean by office runs?
Well, let's say you are starting a small business. You need something that is going to be used for deliveries, but a small business, so you don't want to buy a big van. So this is a passenger car that is good, maybe designed to ferry your staff, to run errands, do some general office movement of office supplies, but on a regular basis. One that will provide fuel economy, storage, cargo space, as well as, I guess, the safety aspect.
Well, again, I'd say either you choose a small van or one of the small pickups. Any
specific vehicles come to mind?
Yeah. No, once upon a time we had cars like, there was an Opel pickup, the very tiny ones.
I remember that, yeah. They were made in South Africa.
Yeah, they were made in South Africa.
Yes.
Then we had the Mazda Drifter or Ford Bantam. So same car but different logos.
Yes.
But those ones have also been phased out. Now at the moment, the market is dominated by only one, the Nissan NP200.
The NP200, that's a multi-purpose...
NP.
NP.
Yeah, okay. That's the smallest pickup that Nissan sells. It's the successor of the B140.
Okay, so these are the pickups you're discussing right now.
Those are the pickups.
In terms of a vehicle that will be able to carry 5 passengers plus some cargo, any suggestions there?
No, there we're talking small vans.
Small vans.
Yeah, you could choose the Maruti Omni, which I know people don't love because it comes from India. According to people, if a car is not from Japan or Germany, it's not worth buying. But the Maruti is not a bad car after all. And that, funnily enough, it's the cheapest car on sale in Kenya at the moment.
And now, have you had a chance to review that vehicle?
Not in the paper, but I've driven it.
Okay, well, Mahindra, if you're listening, Baraza is available. Contact him through live at AutoTalk.co.ke.
I'll be waiting.
You'll be waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is now in terms of the most efficient car for office runs. What about like the misconceptions that if a car is from India, not to rectify it, but I know there was a time when Kia and Hyundai were introduced to Kenya, and no one wanted to buy them. And the same thing happened in North America. They introduced Kia and Hyundai, and people stayed away from it. However, today, the Hyundai is the #1 most popular selling vehicle in North America. It is also one of the most safe vehicles in North America. So there is a standardization of quality that's happening across the world, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's no longer going to hold true that a car made in Japan. And if I'm not mistaken, not all cars are made in Japan, Japanese vehicles. They're not all made in Japan. Some are made in Taiwan, some are made in China even.
Some even made in England.
Some are made in England as well. I see. Okay, so it's a matter of looking for the one that suits you the most in your price budget. All right. Well, we'll move on to the next question, which is in regards to this question comes in regards to being able to import specifically, and I know this is one that a lot of people are aware of, but I'm sure it's still it's still a question for most people, which is, this viewer asks, any KRA issues with importing a left-hand drive vehicle into Kenya?
Yes, there are some issues, because they gave a directive recently. They said there'll be no more importation of left-hand drive in Kenya unless those are emergency vehicles.
I see. Yes. So there's no exception to the rule?
There's no exception to the rule. There's something that they did not quite clear up the air on, and this is ownership of a car in a foreign country. Let's say you've been living in North America, typical left-hand drive market.
Yes.
Let's say you've been living in North America and you've owned your car there for at least, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years, and you have to come back home. I think they'll allow you to bring your car in, but there's also the minimum time limit that you're supposed to have owned the car. Now that minimum time limit is what I'm not sure of.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is 2 years.
2 years?
Yes, 2 years.
Yeah.
However, I personally did inquire about this because I had a Land Rover, left-hand drive.
Okay.
Excuse me, and I was told I could import it. It was left-hand drive, but I would have to convert it to a right-hand drive vehicle. Now, I don't know how far true that is today. This is going back to 2004.
2004?
Yes.
The directive came, I think, was it 2010 or 2009?
Okay, so basically they changed the rules that you can no longer import a left-hand drive unless it's an emergency or a special utility vehicle.
Yeah.
I see. Well, I hope, viewer, that answers your question for you. Our next question is, the 8-year rule of importing a vehicle into Kenya. We have a country like Uganda next door that does not have such a restriction. Yet, the viewer asked a specific question, which is that despite the fact that Uganda allows older vehicles to come in, they have a lower accident rate in that country. In Kenya, we have an 8-year limit, and yet we have a higher accident rate. Does the accident rate have anything to do with the fact that you're for this restriction of the 8 years?
Actually, no.
It doesn't.
Yeah. The accident rate in Kenya, from experience, from what I've observed on the roads, that is specifically down to our driving attitudes. Yeah, we are not very good drivers, sad to say. We are not good drivers.
Is it that we're not good drivers, or that we flaunt our driving skills?
Well, from what I've seen, those are not driving skills.
Those are not driving skills.
It's just, let me call it lack of courtesy on the roads.
I would agree with you on that one wholeheartedly.
Yeah, there's a definite lack of courtesy on the roads. But following the viewer's question, according to the way it was framed, about why Uganda allows the 8-year limit, it's their policy, it's their government policy. Ours is a bit different, because our government is afraid that if they get rid of that policy, the 8-year policy, people are going to start importing junk. We know that in countries like Japan and especially UK, cars as old as 15 years old can be had for next to nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, people buy cars for £100, £200.
And they're barely holding together.
Yes. But around here, provided the car moves, that's a car. So if they get rid of the 8-year cap on the importation policy, people are going to import junk. That is what the government is afraid of.
I see.
And that's why they are very strict about the 8-year rule. Now Uganda allows it, and people do import cars older than 8 years old. And there's an article that I had once done about motor vehicle ownership and how you can also get your own car which is older than 8 years old.
Yeah.
Get a car, import it, register it in Uganda.
Ah, yeah, a loophole.
Yeah, there's a loophole.
If you're all listening, you just found a way to save a couple of 100,000 shillings.
Yeah, there's a loophole. And the beauty of it is you can drive it unlimited kilometers within the country. A weekly permit is free of charge.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you have someone who lives near Uganda or is in Uganda, they can be sending the permit to you on a weekly basis and you'll operate your car. The yearly permit should cost something close to 16,000 bob, or I'm not so sure, but last time I checked it was 16,000 shillings per year for a yearly permit.
Now I'm sure that's very welcoming and valuable advice for a lot of people out there. I'm sure that's going to open up doors for a trade.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Kenyans are very entrepreneurial. I'm sure they'll come up with a creative solution. Our next question is, the reader writes, I've been away for 2 years. What are my liabilities on importation?
What What was the question again? I didn't quite.
I've been away for 2 years. What are my liabilities on importation? So this viewer has been away, let's say North America or UK, over 2 years, and they want to import a vehicle into Kenya. What are they going to be paying for?
I think it's CIF plus tax.
CIF plus tax. So tax rates would be amountable to what?
Is it 55%? Because the car is under the 8-year cap.
Under the 80. Okay.
Yeah, if he brings in his car, it'll be just the same as he's importing the car. So actually, the cost to him will be insurance and freight, not even costs, because he already owns the car.
He already owns the car.
So it will be insurance and freight, and then once he gets to the port, there's a compound rate with which they use to calculate the tax. And there are normally two options, one depending on the CIF, the second one depending on engine size, but either way, whichever route you take, you are still going to end up paying something close to just slightly above half the value of the car.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for answering that one. Our next question is about the Probox, a very popular vehicle in Kenya. So the question is the Probox really that fast? After all, it has a 1500cc engine. Is that a misconception?
It is.
It is.
Yeah, the reason why people say the Probox is that fast is because it's driven that fast.
Yeah. I see.
Most people, when you see most Proboxes, they are, or is it Probises or Probi or Probosai?
Probosai.
Whatever the plural is. Most of them, most of the ones that you see are either they're being used as commercial vehicles.
Yes.
They're being used for business, transporting meat, transporting miraa, transporting passengers as taxis. And in business, speed is everything. Matatu owners will tell you that.
Of course. I mean, in that case, we could quite easily say that a Toyota minivan that's being used by Matatu is a very fast vehicle as well.
It is a very fast
So
vehicle.
are some of the lorries you see traveling down the roads.
And the buses also.
And the buses as well. Yeah,
So
they're basically pedal to the metal.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's because those cars are driven that fast. It's just that most of the people who get overtaken by a Probox are in their own cars.
Yes.
So if the Probox is doing 180, you're not going to risk doing 180 in your own car, maybe with your family in it also.
Yeah, you won't.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's just a misconception then.
Yeah, it's another 1.5 liter car from Japan.
No special enhancements.
There are no special enhancements done to it.
I see. Okay. Well, that's a good answer right there. Another question we have. I'm sorry. Actually, we're out of questions now. That's the last one. We are opening the phone lines and the SMSs for live questions. And do we have any questions, Victor? Nothing at this point. Okay. Well, in that case, we're going to move on to the next one. However, before I do, please note that you are able to leave your questions on our website at autotalk.co.ke/live. All those questions will be answered on the next show. If we can't answer your question on the next show, we will be posting the answers on the web, and you'll be able to check for answers then. Baraza JM actually is the one answering those questions, so you'll be getting answers from an expert. In addition to that, there are many other options. There's our Twitter page. There is also our Facebook page. Please do take a moment and visit those. Now, after that, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll be right back.